I've been waxing my chain in this slow cooker for over a year now to check and see if it's all it's cracked up to be, and if it's suitable for ultra long distance cycling events like brevets. Welcome to Overbiked Randonneuring, a channel where we try to find the best strategies and equipment for ultra distance cycling. And hot pot waxing is excellent for general cycling use in good weather, but I found it comes up really short for ultra distance cycling. But I think I found a workaround that I'd like to share with you today, so let's dive in. One of the main reasons to move to a slow cooker wax is to increase the chain life, and that's one of their big claims. And I found by moving to this M-Speed wax that my average chain over the past year and 3 months or so has lasted between 6,000 and 7,000 kilometers, which is about double of the 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers I would get when using oil. A second motivation to move to a slow cooker wax is just a cleaner overall experience. And I found my house is a lot cleaner. Whenever I wash my bike, it doesn't completely ruin the veranda, and I don't have to scrub off bike oil grease from the washer and dryer out there. Even in my little office here, I just have to sweep up some wax crumbs every now and again, and that's not really a big deal. And I've lost no clothes to bicycle chain oil since moving to this wax. But another big motivation for me was the maintenance experience. I found living in a small apartment and having to either use the veranda and making a mess out there, or taking the bike down the hall, down the elevator, and out to the trash cans to clean it off with the hose there was just a really big pain. And I was hoping this would make maintenance life a lot easier. I don't want to or like to spend a lot of time cleaning bikes, and so there's a lot of back and forth about the maintenance demands of using a wax. And I think one of the big problems is a lot of the wax people that love waxing, they're just, we might use the word persnickety. They really love getting into the weeds and into the details of doing things perfectly. I don't think that needs to be done, and that probably turns a lot of people off of waxing. So here, I'll take a quick minute and share my setup that's easier, I've heard someone say this recently, easier than anything else you'll see on the internet. Mine might really be easier. Judge for yourself. All right, so here's my setup for initial chain prep for a new chain. Get 2 baths of mineral spirits here in the jar. After 24 hours, take it out, replace the mineral spirits to give it the second bath, and finally rinse it with some denatured alcohol, which I keep in here, but I can just pour it straight into the jar. And that's it for initial chain prep. For the waxing process, I turn on the slow cooker, set the timer for about 45 minutes while it heats up, and play video games. I put the chain on this old busted shifter cable and then put it into the melted wax and just shuffle it around for a little bit, swirl it around, and put it on this old coffee cup rack from Daiso. Nothing fancy. The slow cooker lives down here under the workbench, and it just plugs in where I charge all of my flashlights and bicycle lights and computers. One area I was a little bit hesitant about when moving to a slow cooker wax was the idea that when you ride in the wet, or if your chain gets a little dirty, that you need to fully reset it with like mineral spirits and denatured alcohol or some branded chain cleaner before waxing it again. And I find that historically, not just these days, but even 10 years ago when people on internet forums were waxing lyrical about wax, that wax people are really precious about how dirty their wax gets. But if we remove that feeling that we need to maintain our wax in tip-top shape in the same way we maintain our chains, if we just treat the wax in a bit more of a disposable way, it becomes a lot easier and there are fewer barriers to maintaining your bike. So even when it gets wet or gets dirty, I still just wipe it down with a dry cloth, accepting that there's going to get some dirt in the wax and that the wax will be a little bit more dirty otherwise, but I can just replace it a little bit sooner and still more than double the lifespan of my chains compared to using oil. And I think with that attitude, we can reduce our mental workload and maintenance burdens and all the magic tricks we need to use a wax system like this and boil it down into something that's really simple and easy. Just wipe the chain down, put it back in the pot. Now, the reason I bring up The attitude of not treating our chain wax so preciously is because of how poorly it performs at ultra-distance events. Over the past year, I found that it's just not up to task on multiple levels. Even when conditions are dry and perfect, this lasts 200 to 250 kilometers. The shortest brevet is 200 kilometers, so there's really only one type of event that one of these treatments will last. If there's any weather involved at all, the treatment lifespan of melt wax goes down a lot. Just 2 weeks ago, I did a 200. It wasn't even raining, it was just wet from the night before and a little bit foggy. The wax lasted about 100 kilometers before the chain started screaming. Anything above 200K and just a treatment cannot last long enough to satisfy the event, so there needs to be some type of retreatment. Drip waxes take too long to dry, longer than I would ever sleep or take a rest break. So those are also unacceptable. So naturally, we need to call in some classic reinforcements. Here's a clip from my 300K brevet last weekend. All right, this wax has about 200 kilometers on it, and it feels like it's about done. But my ride here is only about halfway over. So I'm gonna try out my secret wax solution for long rides, which is just putting some oil on it. Everybody does that, but the secret is when we get back home. Here's the aftermath from that 300K. Added some oil to the chain, and now it's a gross mixture of oil and wax. And so I'll do what I always do here, just wipe it down with a rag and throw it in the pot. Not looking too bad now. In total, the treatment on the 300K was about 3 milliliters of oil. Let's put it in the pot. I think I'm going to chain waxing hell for this, but there we go. In it goes to be swished around in a little bit. So here's my take, and feel free to flame me in the comments below. But I think that overall hot pot wax is amazing for day-to-day life, but is completely unsuitable for ultra-distance events. I still want to use it in day-to-day life, so I think a compromise needs to be made. We can't be treating our wax really preciously. And if we end up adding a little bit of oil into the pot, it's not actually that big of a deal. In fact, Josh over at Silka has a video for their winter blend, which is pouring like a third of a bottle this size of oil just straight into their pot of wax. And the oil softens up the wax a little bit and makes it stick to the chain better, which is better for wet conditions and better for snow. As it turns out, a lot of randonneurs ride in wet conditions too, so maybe a little bit of dirty oil getting added to the pot isn't actually all that big of a deal. And again, one of the big benefits of a slow cooker wax is said to be that the large volume of liquid is able to absorb a lot more dirt than just a few drops of oil can if you're trying to use the oil to clean and relubricate your chain as is advertised. The solution to pollution is dilution. And with my system, it just adds a little bit more pollution to our wax, and it will require the wax to be changed a little bit more often. But we still get almost all of the benefits of the wax and a much easier maintenance schedule. And that's important because it's really nice to just have a hot pot wax system to ease that burden of bike maintenance and keep the apartment clean. But do tell me what you think. There's a lot of other great solutions that I've seen in the comments from my previous video on drip wax, and I look forward to trying some of those too. But for now, for long distance cycling, I think each time I will start with a freshly waxed chain, and I'll be looking forward to using this little eyedropper bottle full of oil to completely ruin it and taint my hot pot of wax when I get home, but at least I'll have a quiet chain that's running smooth. I hope yours does too. So ride safe and see you in the next video. Tainted wax, whoa, tainted wax.